Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online Regulation E VGC ladder in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and provide live commentary as I go. We are nearing the end of the Regulation E format as the DLC is now out, and there are a lot of brand new Pokemon that are about to be introduced to competitive play. But to wrap up the format, I wanted to feature a championship winning team featuring Illumise. This team just won a regional championship over in Taiwan, and Illumise is not a very common Pokemon. However, it has a couple of really nice use cases in this format. It is the only Prankster Pokemon that gets access to Encore, Tailwind, as well as Fake Tears, making it a very impressive utility Pokemon. Now, Whimsicott normally fulfills this role, but Whimsicott's not allowed in Regulation E, and that's the main reason why Illumise was able to rise to the top. You combine it with special attackers like Flutter and Chi-Yu, and you're able to get very quick knockouts through the combination of Fake Tears plus really strong special attacks. As always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps down below, and thanks so much as always for joining me. If you enjoy, would really appreciate it if you consider leaving a like in the video or subscribing to the channel. It really helps out a ton. Anyway, let's get started. Breaking things down, as always, rental, pace, and team creator are linked down in the description below. And question of the day, with the DLC now out, I want to know what Pokemon you'd like to see me try out first here on the channel. Huge congratulations to Bug Project for winning the entire regional championships. This tournament had over 100 players competing in it. I actually got to stop by because by pure coincidence, I was on vacation in Taiwan, and it was really cool to meet so many incredible people from the local community there. Such a vibrant scene. And to see Illumise claim one of the final regional championships in a format that was dominated by Tornadus, I think is especially cool to see. There's a really in-depth team report written for this team as well, so I highly recommend you check it out if you want to see about the team building process, how it came together, what the individual EV spreads do, and how to play with the team. The first Pokemon to highlight, of course, is Illumise, and like I mentioned earlier, the main reason to use this Pokemon in Regulation E is because it's the only Pokemon that gets Prankster, Tailwind, Encore, and Fake Tears. So very much like Whimsicott, which is not allowed in the Regulation E format. The idea is, of course, you're going to set up Tailwind, you're going to be able to help boost the damage output of Flutter and Chi-Yu thanks to Fake Tears. Encore is such a good move on this Pokemon, by the way, because it's so unexpected. And I think part of the appeal of using Illumise is that people just don't have as much experience fighting against it. So I've had a lot of opponents misplay when playing against it because they just don't really know what it has to offer. Illumise here has Dark Terror and Covert Cloak. Covert Cloak is really valuable against all the fake outs that exist in the format, especially from Rillaboom and Iron Hand, so makes it a really consistent lead option. And Dark Terror is helpful because you can Dark Terror to get around Taunt from Prankster Tornadus. Now, you can switch things up. You can run Ghost Terra and then run Mentorb, for example, which is another consideration. But for the in-person best-of-3 open team sheet meta, I think this was absolutely the right call. The team creator mentioned that Tornadus in person just felt like they were really dropping Taunt. And when I competed at the San Antonio Regional Championships, which was the weekend after the Taiwan tournament, that very much felt like the case. I played so many Tornaduses, none of them had Taunt. This is very different from the ladder, where I think on ladder, a lot of people still are running Taunt because Taunt just has like more utility, I would say, especially in the closed team sheet environment. So you can definitely switch this up and run Mentorb with Ghost Terror instead. But yeah, I think like both combinations are fairly strong. I think this was definitely the right call for the in-person open team sheet meta. Super bulky here, you're mainly invested in HP and defense, and Infestation is your last move. The main thing to note about Infestation is that it traps and damages your opponent for 4 to 5 turns, but if Illumise faints, then your opponent is no longer trapped in, so keep that in mind. You're mainly going to want to combo this with Flutter and Chi-Yu, so as a lead, Illumise Flutter is really good. You just start going for Fake Tears into big damage from Flutter and get one-hit knockouts immediately. Flutter is pretty standard here, just note that you are fairly fast with modest 196 speed EVs, and you're running Power Gem as well. Power Gem is nice just into a bunch of different Pokemon, especially Fire-type Pokemon, for example, like Ogerpon Fire or Hisuian Arcanine, and so this is a pretty valuable move, and can really catch opponents off guard. Also covers for some Terras that are out there as well. Chi-Yu on this team is pretty standard. The main thing that I want to call out here is that it's got Snarl instead of something like Overheat. Snarl is just really good into things like Indeedee Armarouge, which people still have been using, and can deal pretty significant damage while also offering a lot of utility. So, you know, go-to leads, like you can really consider Illumise Flutter, Illumise Chi-Yu, Chi-Yu Flutter. These are all really strong. To round out the team, you've got 3 physical attackers. The first one is Water Ogerpon, and this is a offensive set with Ivy Cudgel, Horn Leech, but you also have Follow Me for utility. Follow Me is really nice because often you'll like set up Tailwind with Illumise, something will be attacking, Illumise faints, you bring in Ogerpon, and you can just go for Follow Me and continue spamming damage with Chi-Yu or Flutter, for example. But don't discount this as a terror option because it does a lot of damage. Iron Hands on this team is fairly standard. As you can see, it is a Fire Terra set, and it's got the standard Assault Vest moves. The main thing to note here is that with 36 speed EVs, when you are under Tailwind, you outspeed Adamant, max speed Urshifu, which is a really nice benchmark. I think the team in-game actually is at 24 speed EVs, and so be careful about that, because it's supposed to be 36 so that you always outspeed Adamant, max speed Urshifu, but just keep that in mind. Final Pokemon is Scarf Urshifu, and this exists mainly to deal with things like Landorus Therian, for example. You resist Rock Slide, you retaliate back with Surging Strikes. Pretty straightforward Pokemon. I'd say that when I use this team, Urshifu is probably the Pokemon that I bring out the least, mainly because it doesn't get to take advantage of fake tiers, obviously, from Illumise, whereas Flutter and Chi-Yu do, and Hands and Ogerpon are a little bit bulkier, whereas Urshifu, if I'm bringing it, I really want to guarantee picking up big knockouts with it. So, yeah. Like I mentioned, check out the team report for more details about using the team. For me, I think I go through a checklist first of, do I bring Illumise? You could bring it in the back. I think for ladder play online, I normally try to lead with it in the majority of games, but back Illumise can be valuable against opposing teams with Tailwind. And my checklist for Illumise is, 1, is Tailwind valuable, right? Do I actually need it? Because sometimes you'll run into matchups where you just don't need Tailwind. 2, is Fake Tiers valuable? Can I just get big one-hit knockouts that can completely swing the game into my favor, especially in turn 1 and turn 2 of the battle when my opponent doesn't expect it? 3, does my opponent have ways to stop Illumise from getting value from Fake Tiers and Encore? There are a bunch of different things that can do that, right? For example, Taunt from a Tornadus can be annoying. Psychic Terrain from Indeedee just blocks these Prankster moves. Farigiraf blocks these Prankster moves as well. And then Dark-type Pokemon are also immune to them. Golden Go, for example, is another specific option that can be a little bit annoying because you just can't really do anything into it with the Illumise. So those are all things that I'm asking myself, okay, can I, bring the Illumise, because if they have those, then it becomes substantially weaker. So then I have to think twice about whether or not I actually want to bring this Pokemon. So those are kind of the main things that I consider when thinking about leading Illumise, and then it's about figuring out what the best lead with it is. I think I generally like Illumise Flutter, Illumise Chi-Yu, and Illumise Ogerpon, and then go from there. So yeah, there also obviously are other leads. I think you can go with Hands with anything, but like Hands Flutter, Hands Chi-Yu, Hands Urshifu, it's a lot of damage output immediately. And then you could go with like Ogerpon Follow Me with Flutter or Ogerpon Chi-Yu, and just use this as a redirection user while spamming damage early on with these attackers. So yeah. That's it for a breakdown. Now let's highlight some weaknesses. So in terms of weaknesses, I think the first thing that I want to note is that Illumise is a little bit harder to use in the closed team sheet environment. Like, for example, I've brought it against Tornadus teams, and I've just lost a couple of times because I get taunted on turn 1, and I don't know that my opponent's Urshifu is Choice Scarf, and then so they just like Surging Strikes my Flutter main, taunt my Illumise, and suddenly I'm so far behind in the game. Whereas in an open team sheet environment, just knowing if they have Scarf means that you wouldn't lead Flutter main normally. And so leading with this team is really important, but in a closed team sheet environment, you might get caught off guard by some surprises. I think surprise Focus Sashes, big survivals are also kind of tough, right? Like imagine you commit Fake Tiers plus Moonblast into something, it survives with 1 HP and then knocks out Flutter main in return. That can be pretty scary. Like I mentioned earlier, Illumise can be shut down by a bunch of different things. Taunt is one, Psychic Current from Indeedee, Farigiraf, Dark-type Pokemon, Golden Go. Those are all things that can give Illumise some trouble. And sometimes you'll end up in a scenario where Illumise is out on the field, it's maybe set up Tailwind, but it's just not doing anything else. Especially, right, if your special attackers go down, like Fake Tiers just loses so much value as well. So it's a Pokemon that can put in so much work, but it can be caught in really tricky situations as well. And I've had opponents that were smart and kind of just left Illumise on the field and attacked around it. I think another thing to note is that like Chew and Flutter on this team as well as Ogerpon are all pretty fast Pokemon, but if you go up against, for example, like a modest Flutter main with even more speed investment, a Chiampao that's jolly max speed, it can outpace these Pokemon, right? I think priority can be pretty scary as well. Something like a defensive Rillaboom that also is spamming Grassy Glide, Chiampao with Sucker Punch, for example, extreme speed from Dragonite. You obviously have counterplay to those, but sometimes the priority can be overwhelming because it just kind of ignores the Tailwind from Illumise and then can cause some problems. Trick Room, I think, can also be a little bit scary just because of the nature of this team. You have ways to deal with it, like you can Encore a Trick Room user and then get them to set up Trick Room and then reverse it. You can use Iron Hands for Fake Out, Ogerpon defensively, but I've had games where Trick Room just catches me off guard and then I get swept by something like a Torkoal under Trick Room, for example. So yeah, those are just a couple of things. I think this team can win super quickly and it's so powerful. But yeah, I think because of the nature of something like Specs Flutter main, sometimes I think in a fair amount of matches I lose, I don't use Flutter super well, where like I don't get a knockout, Flutter gets KO'd, and then that trade just isn't worth it because this Pokemon is such a strong option on this team in particular. So yeah. Whoa. Really cool team from a high-ranked opponent. Grass, Ogerpon, Saboy, Tyranitar, Landorus Incarnate, Bundle, and Sylveon. very much an off-meta team. It's cool to see Landorus and Tyranitar together as well. Sheer Force Landorus is the norm, but can't help but wonder if that's not the case here. We have Covert Cloak on the Illumise, which is really nice. Chiyu is immune to Prankster attacks from Sableye. They don't have any Flutter resistances or immunities, so Flutter does look pretty powerful, but we have to be careful about it just getting knocked out. Like, my opponent could lead something like Grass Ogre Palm plus Sableye to be pretty disruptive. So, I definitely want to go with Illumise. I mean, Illumise Flutter seems decent here. Could bring hands, but I think Lando Eye is quite scary. The other question is how fast Lando Eye is, because if you're... Most people run Modest these days, but I was playing a practice game and ran into one that was timid max speed, and that's just enough to outspeed Chiyu. Okay, I think I will go with Illumise plus Flutter. Chiyu in the back. Ogerpon. All of our Pokemon are pretty good here, though. I don't love Iron Hands because Landorus crushes it, and its Will-O-Wisp bait, and Sylveon crushes it as well. But I think Scarf Urshifu you can make a great argument for, because it can just come in and Surging Strikes things like Landorus. But it also can be burnt by Sableye, right? Which I don't love. So, let's see. Really cool team. It's going to be Sableye and Sylveon. Okay. I can definitely just go for something like Fake Tears and start attacking. I wonder if Sableye is like defensive berry here. We could Fairy Terra this pretty easily. I just want to eliminate Sableye first, if anything. I have Infestation here. I guess Sableye could defensively Terra. Okay, I'm just gonna go Fake Tears Moonblast Sylveon on turn 1. They're gonna Terra. Ideally, it's Sableye going for a Terra here, but I guess Sylveon could go for a defensive Terra. It is Sylveon Terraing, okay. Into Fairy, though. Okay. I'm now worried about what? Like Quash Hyper Beam? Nice. This is where Covert Cloak is such an incredible item. Okay, beautiful. So we get Fake Tears off. I don't know if I needed to Terra here, though. Okay, good. I didn't want to commit my Terra early on. That should just blow up the game for us. And this is part of the reason why the Covert Cloak is such a valuable item. Sableye is not a very common Fake Out user, but you have things like Rillaboom as well as Iron Hands that are quite common. And so having the Covert Cloak to ignore that is really nice. And it's even better in close team sheet best of 1 because you just completely catch your opponents off guard. So they bring out Landorus here. I can Tailwind now. The reason why I value Tailwind is because even with Landorus and Sableye being able to Quash, I can set up Tailwind for Chiyu, basically, and ensure that we're faster with that. Yeah, so Tailwind and Moonblast, and I'll just target Sableye here. Ooh, okay, they've got Disable, though. That makes this really interesting. Nice move to have. Okay. They probably have Encore as well then, right? Sandseer Storm here is going to miss onto the Flutter. Not do too much damage into Illumise. Okay, so I think Flutter definitely switches into Ogerpon here. We've gotten Tailwind up. I can't Encore into Sableye because they're a Dark type, so they're immune to Prankster moves. Could just go for Encore onto the Lando slot. Could go for Infestation for chip damage. I think it's going to be Disable and Encore, honestly. So I don't think it's going to have Will-O-Wisp, but I guess we'll see. I'm going to go for Encore onto Landorus and switch an Ogerpon, mainly because they could, of course, Sludge Bomb here. see. I'm mainly curious on what Sableye's remaining moves are. Oh, it looks like it's trying to attack here. Okay. Oh, actually it's not because we set up Tailwind. Yeah, so it is Encore Disable, as I thought. They just go for another Sandsear Storm, which is fine. 2 turns of Tailwind left. They've already committed their Terra. Lando switching out here feels likely. I don't mind going for Infestation. I mean, I think if we can just knock out Sableye here, that would be great. It just clears the path. So I'm down to go for Infestation onto it. Do I want a Terra here? Like, what's my best Terra option? Could be Terra Flutter. We could also read the Lander switch out here, right? Like, Infestation this. Terra. Hornleech. Let's see what comes out. That's Iron Bundle. Nice. Yeah, I think that Hornleech should put us in a really good spot then. Because I don't think you can beat the Ogerpon at this point. But Illumise was so good here, right? It allowed us to get a surprise knockout onto Sylveon. It avoided the fake out flinch. It allowed us to get the fake tier so my opponent's Terra was wasted. It allowed us to Encore the Landorus to put it into a tricky position as well. Set up Tailwind as well. But it's a little bit awkward in this battle of the unique Prankster users just because we both have, yeah, like some pretty interesting utility moves. So they actually go for Encore, but it fails. Interesting. Well, we just get the knockout there. And now that we have the special defense boost as well, I just don't think you can beat Ogerpon. My guess is that they just don't have Will-O-Wisp on the Sableye slot. Cool. Now we get Infestation as well. Perfect. And now Sableye takes chip damage. So Landorus comes back out, but without Terra and with the special defense boost, you can Encore me, but you can't I mean, you can disable me or Encore me, but the main thing is I can still use Ivy Cudgel this turn, right? Which is the key thing. So last turn of Tailwind here, you're bound. Happy to just go for fake tears here to set this up for a knockout, and then just go for Ivy Cudgel onto Sableye. Actually, because they're gonna, like, I have Tailwind up here, right? Yeah. So I can click Encore here to mess them up, and then just Ivy Cudgel into Sableye. And they end up forfeiting. So basically the Encore there, I probably should have actually launched Ivy Cudgel until Landorus there. But basically the Encore, what that means is if you end up protecting that turn, then I can just Encore you next turn with the Illumise, right? Because I don't want to get Encored into the Infestation specifically on Illumise. So, yeah. But either way, I think like Illumise was definitely the MVP of this game just because it enabled so much for us. It enabled us to get a one-hit knockout onto Sylveon when they went all in with this Terra on turn 1, and it put on pressure into the Lander slot as well. And of course, making the read that Iron Bundle would come in and going for Hornleech onto that slot secured us the victory. I thought we could have also gone for the knockout onto the Sableye slot, but I wasn't sure how bulky it was, and I wasn't sure if like the combination of Infestation plus the chip damage from it plus Ivy Cudgel is actually enough to get the knockout. Whereas I figured, well, if Landorus, if it is Iron Bundle in the back and I get this knockout, we just win. But yeah, that was definitely a cool showcase of Illumise. Just a quick mechanic explanation, by the way. You saw that Sableye's Encore failed midway through the match, and the reason for that is because it was probably trying to Encore Illumise, which just used Encore. If you Encore a Pokemon that just used Encore, the move fails, and that's part of the reason why I was going for it at that last turn as well, because I wanted Sableye to not lock me into something else, and so if I click Encore there, they would move after me since Tailwind is up, Encore would fail, then Tailwind ends, and then Sableye becomes faster than me, right? And so that was kind of the logic behind clicking Encore that specific turn. I think Ogerpon essentially had that game won at that point since you just don't do enough damage to it. We have the special defense boost, and Sableye is a pretty passive Pokemon, but at the end, I think Illumise just proved to be a really good Prankster support Pokemon, but wanted to explain that interaction in particular because it is not something that comes up that frequently. Okay, we've got a kind of pseudo Trick Room team here. Cresselia plus Ursaluna with the Urshifu, Hisuian Arcanine, Flutter, and the Ogerpon. If they wanted to set up Trick Room, I think Cresselia plus Ogerpon is generally pretty safe. The question is whether or not it's Mentor Cresselia, because if not, I can actually Encore your Cresselia and just let you reverse Trick Room. For example, I could just lead Illumise plus the Ogre Pawn. Sorry, I said Illumise Ogre Pawn. Illumise Flutterbane. I think I want Illumise. I want Flutter. I want Ogre. Maybe Hands. Hands, if they set up Trick Room, is actually pretty good into their team. Chiyu is valuable just because of Sash, right? So against like Cresselia plus Ursaluna, if I get a Fake Tears off onto the Ursaluna, then we can try to just snipe the Ursaluna off. Not bringing Hands here feels a little odd. Because like there's no guarantee they commit to Trick Room either. But Hands is so weak into Ursaluna. Since our Terra is not a good defensive Terra either. Okay, I'm going to go with Chiyu, but I think you can make a good argument for Hands. Yeah, I'm mainly curious about the item on Cresselia, right? Cresselia runs a wide variety of items. You can run Mentor, you can run Citrus Berry, you can run Safety Goggles. Safety Goggles plus Lunar Blessing is really nice to counter Amoonguss, for example. So, if it's not Mentor here, I think Illumise becomes significantly stronger. They're going to go with Flutter and Hisuian Arcanine. Okay. I'm inclined to want to Fairy Terra so that you don't one-shot me if you're Specs with Shadow Ball. And then Fake Tears into Hisuian Arc. Fake Tears, Terra, Shadow Ball this. Okay. They go for a Terra and they're moving first, so they're faster. That makes sense. I don't love seeing that, honestly, the fact that their Flutter is faster, but it's actually Water Terra. Okay, so it's not an offensive Terra. Fine by me. Water Terra, of course, is something that people were using defensively on Flutter, especially against Urshifu. So, makes a lot of sense. But if I just get the knockout onto Arcanine here turn 1, I'm pretty happy. And it also means that their Flutter should not get a one-hit knockout onto either of my Pokemon, and I think that's a pretty big deal. Also, now by going for Water Terra, this enables my Ogre Pawn to be able to KO you with Horn Leech. Cool. We knock out Arcanine. Yeah, I think Fake Tears combos with Illumise on turn 1 is so powerful. And what really helps here is they don't get a KO. And now I can pressure Tailwind. But my question is whether or not, like... Oh, they bring out Ursaluna. Okay. That's really interesting, huh? Would not have expected to see that come out immediately. You can, of course, Moonblast me now. Was that Specs damage? It kind of felt like it, honestly. Which, if that's the case, like, I kind of want to just Fake Tear Shadow Ball the Flutter here. And just get it out of the way. It feels like Choice Specs damage. That did so much to us. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to Fake Tear Shadow Ball Flutter. They're probably Swords Dancing here with the Ursaluna. Well, actually, if you Swords Dance, though, then it means that you don't knock out Fluttermane, which is really bad if your last one's Cresselia, right? Cool. We get another knockout in 2 turns. I would love to see Swords Dance, personally. But I guess if they Swords Dance, then I have to play around the Ally Switch Mind game. But yeah, they just click Facade. Okay, that's fine. Now I have Ogre and Chiyu, which is pretty good as a final 2. I guess my concern, though, with Ogre Chiyu, like, is they bring out Cresselia and I double up onto the Cresselia and I don't get a knockout with Dark Pulse plus, no, that's not even Cress, is it? Ooh, it's Ogre Pawn. Okay. Huh, that makes this for a really interesting endgame. I thought Crest would be their last one for sure. If we had the faster Flutter in this game, it would have been so free, but we did not. I'm curious how much speed investment their Flutter has. Also curious how fast their Ogerpon is. They could go for Follow Me here, but I think if you go for Follow Me, you actually end up losing to Horn Leech and Heat Wave. I want a Spiky Shield and Protect. I'm worried that they actually click Swords Dance with Ursaluna, but that would be kind of a crazy play, and I don't think it really changes much anyway. So I'm going to go for this to scout out for Protects on their end. And to see if they have Follow Me, right? Like, maybe they protect the Ursaluna and try to just attack here. Okay, they just went for Cudgel into Chi-Yu. Oh, and they use Earthquake, so they damage themselves. That's a really big deal, in my opinion. That might just put it in Heat Wave KO range. Oh, that definitely does, I think. Because they crit themselves. Yeah, that was a really risky play. And now I think it gets punished pretty heavily. I could Follow Me here. This is clicking Ivy Cudgel. It could... I think the two things to respect are Protect, Ivy Cudgel, Protect, Horn Leech, Follow Me, Earthquake, Spiky Shield, Earthquake / Facade. So I think I personally like Horn Leech here and just Heat Wave, now that they ended up Earthquaking themselves. Oh, and we're just faster with Chi-Yu. Okay, nice. Get a crit there, but yeah, I don't think most of this mattered in the end, given that Chi-Yu was faster. Yeah. I think, you know, if they did not get the self-crit, I would probably make the same play the subsequent turn. The risk in that play is, without knowing how fast we are relative to Ogerpon, if the Ogerpon ends up being faster, it can get a little bit spooky. But I think, you know, even if the crit on their self Ogerpon doesn't happen, I go for Heat Wave plus the Horn Leech onto their Ursaluna slot, and they're like, you would have to go for something like Follow Me. Like, if you go for Spiky Shield on the Ogerpon, then I just knock out your Ursaluna if I hit the Heat Wave. If you go for Follow Me, then Heat Wave plus the Horn Leech KOs your Ogerpon, and you can Facade to get a knockout onto my Ogerpon, or you can Earthquake, which would bring Chi-Yu down to Focus Sash and not knock out my Ogerpon. So we'd be good in that scenario. You could protect your Ursaluna, but if you protect Ursaluna, then Heat Wave still does a lot of damage, and you either Horn Leech into my Ogerpon and recover a little bit, or you Ivy Cudgel and bring me down to 1 HP. But what we would have seen is that we were faster, right? That being said, I didn't know that we were going to be faster until the very end there, and so I wanted to keep that in mind and play around the fact that maybe their Ogerpon is max speed. But since it wasn't in the end, we were totally okay. You know, I think the self-crit is definitely always a big risk of attacking when you attack yourself. But yeah, I think because we were faster, this endgame was likely won as long as we made the right moves and didn't miss our Heat Waves. Ooh, we've got Salamence here. Very cool. Salamence is a Pokemon that picked up usage towards the end of this regulation. There were actually different ways that people use Salamence. We saw it at the Toronto Regional Championships in October, and that was like a Choice Scarf set with Tailwind. But then we also saw people pivot to Rocky Helmet with like Tailwind and Roost. So you can either use it as an offensive option with Intimidate or a super defensive option with Rocky Helmet. So definitely want to respect both options. Rocky Helmet feels a little bit more common, and so it makes me not want to bring Urshifu as much. Yeah, I mean, the top 4 of this team are just so good, so I'm wondering if there's any reason to deviate from it. I like it a lot here, especially because they don't have something like Prankster Tailwind on their end, so even if it's Scarf Urshifu, being able to get Tailwind up immediately is quite powerful. Definitely like these two. Rillaboom is like kind of annoying to fight against. Their team is fairly fast, so like the problem is even if I set up Tailwind, Iron Hands is slower than a couple of their mons, which doesn't feel great. I think I want Chi-Yu. It might just be Ogerpon again, honestly. Could be Hands. But I'm going to bring Ogerpon, and one of the reasons for it is because they're likely going to set up the grassy terrain if they bring Rillaboom. So if they bring Rillaboom and set up terrain, then I can like get more value out of Horn Leech and tank damage and heal back as well. So yeah. But once again, we have Covert Cloak here, so they lead Rillaboom. Like Illumise is looking very good. Okay, it's gonna be Mence and Ogerpon. I think turn 1 here, I honestly really like the idea of Fake Tears and Shadow Ball to KO Ogerpon. I have Power Gem as well, but I think locking in a Shadow Ball is fine. They don't have any Ghost Resistances or immunities. Yeah, I feel like this is pretty safe, right? Because our Flutter here is 180, should outspeed max speed Ogerpon. Okay, let's go for it. Nice. Probably Golden Go. Ah, Rilla. Okay, if Rilla's coming out, I would guess Ogre protects here, but let's see. It doesn't. Oh, but they're clicking Grassy Glide. Does that KO? Okay, they didn't glide. You know, one play they could have made was Terra there and then glide into me. That could have been really spooky, but you can see how good Illumise is, right? It keeps going for these fake tier setups and we keep getting it. So that's a huge offensive threat out of the way immediately. And I'm still immune to Fake Out here, so you can't even click Fake Out onto my Illumise this next turn. They bring out Rillaboom and Flutter. Tailwind's really safe here for Illumise. That was a huge lead, but like this game is still far from over, so let's be careful. I think I don't mind Tailwind and just Shadow Ball into Flutter here. They could easily protect Flutter or Terror it. You could protect and then Woodhammer, but if you protect, I just Encore you. Yeah, they do go for protect, but now I can just Encore, like I said. It's probably Woodhammer, but I don't mind that because you take a lot of recoil and I get a free switch into Chi-Yu. Yeah. Would have been cool to make the read and like fake tier Shadow Ball the Rillaboom slot, but I'm okay with this outcome, honestly. So now I'm happy to bring out the Chi-Yu. I think with Chi-Yu out now, Rillaboom probably goes for Fire Terra. So I can Encore into you. I don't mind Encore and Protect here. Because I want to bait out Rillaboom Terra. They could switch Flutter into Mence here. That'd be a really strong play. And I don't think Ogre as my final is necessarily really that good of an option. But I guess if they Terra Rillaboom into Fire, ends up being really strong, right? Yeah, like I was willing to go for that play previously. Nice switch. Okay, nicely done. This is really good by them. But it's still fine. Like I'm hoping here we bait out a Rilla Terra and then I can just go for like Fake Tears Dark Pulse into that slot next turn. Yeah, there's the Terra. Okay, cool. One thing to think about is also clicking Infestation just to trap them in. Which is pretty interesting because terrain is slowly expiring. Like, I actually have to deal enough damage with Ogerpon to win this game, right? Is the thing. So we still have to be really careful. My opponents made the perfect play, like, the last 2 turns, though, to, I'd say, like, get themselves back into this one. They actually up for U-turn into Chi-Yu. Okay. U-turn into Chi-Yu. So I kind of want to fake Tears the Mence and Dark Pulse into it. This isn't really too much of a threat. And Mence doesn't carry Protect, so I think this is relatively safe. Because I don't want them getting Tailwind up here. Nice. That's another knockout. And Ogerpon's looking even better now. Okay, and they end up U-turning into Illumise, which is fine. Cool. Fake Tears has been so good this game. It's allowed us to just get one-hit KO after one-hit KO. So I'm really happy to showcase how good Illumise is. Flutter comes back out. And our Sash on Chi-Yu isn't even broken, which is the best part about all of this. Okay, Rilla comes back out. What also is so nice for us here is the way they time that, right? Because this is the last turn of Grassy Terrain. So why that's such a big deal is because Grassy Terrain's going to end, and I can just bring out Ogerpon and Terra this, which is super good for us. So I don't think I could Terra Ghost this as well, just to get around Fake Out. But I think Ogerpon Terraing feels better here. Yeah, I feel like Ogerpon Terra should win the game. So I'm just going to Fake Tears into the Flutter main slot and then Protect with the Chi-Yu, knowing that I have Covert Cloak. We know that Flutter is not choiced. And if Illumise doesn't go down this turn and they actually let me get Tailwind up again, then the game's definitely over. Smart of them to not click Fake Out here. We get Fake Tears off. Oh! Okay, I didn't see that one coming. Interesting. It is Taunt on the Flutter main. Well, that's actually a pretty valuable tool for them to have in this spot. And I didn't really factor that into the equation, but I think endgame Ogerpon should win this anyway. So I'm still taunted for 2 turns. Or sorry, 3 turns. I think we could throw this game if I switched Illumise out into Ogerpon, so we actually want them to just, like, get a knockout. I'm happy to just click Infestation into... I mean, I'm down to double up onto Flutter. Like, even if Flutter protects, it's fine. Yeah, good protect. The reason why I'm fine with this is because you're not beating Ogerpon in the end game. So all I'm waiting for is a free switch in, and if you attack with Flutter there, I just win the game immediately. But even without attacking, like, the one way I could lose this game is if I switched in Ogerpon and let it take so much free damage, right? We really don't want that happening. So, this is just an Ogerpon waiting room right now. Like, imagine if I switched the Chi-Yu out into Ogerpon there and then it gets crit, right? Then things actually get a little bit dicey. 2 turns of Taunt left. So I'm just going to click Infestation. I might as well get the chip damage, I guess, onto Rillaboom, although I don't think it's ever surviving an Ivy Cudgel. Taunt definitely made things more interesting and extends this game a little bit. Oh, they actually Moonblast into Illumise. Okay. Surprisingly does get the knockout, but I guess there was the special defense drop from Chi-Yu. But now I just get Dark Pulse into Flutter main. Nice. Cool. We didn't really need Tailwind in this endgame because I knew I had Ogerpon. Like, that's why I think getting these aggressive knockouts was such a big deal, right? Because it accelerates the pace of the battle to the point where you just like can't cycle grassy terrain as much, and that was one thing that was really critical in this game. So yeah, I think the fact that they U-turn into Chi-Yu, that turn alone was huge. So now I can just Terra and Ivy Cudgel and Dark Pulse. Like, I knew that Ogerpon should be able to win the 2v1 endgame. Like, even if I lost both Pokemon, Ogerpon with Terra should be able to just one-shot the Rillaboom. Rillaboom should be Assault Vested so it can't protect. Fluttermane can Moonblast into us, but it shouldn't deal more than 50%. And then I can just go for Ivy Cudgel onto Flutter the next turn. Or even Hornleech, for example, if we're worried about Moonblast damage output and want to heal back a little bit. So I figured Ogerpon by itself should win that endgame. So any extra chip damage that we get onto either Pokemon just makes it even easier for us. And the one thing I didn't want to do was switch in Ogerpon and unnecessarily throw the game, right? Imagine if I had switched the Illumise into Ogerpon and to like get rid of the taunt, well then that actually becomes really spooky, because if you double up onto that slot with Moonblast and Woodhammer, that's the easiest way to throw the match. Illumise does not do damage for us. Ogerpon is the carry, so we just have to make sure we protect it and get it into the right spot at the right time and not throw away the game. Pokemon's a game where one bad mistake can legitimately turn a very winning position into a completely losing position, and I think this game was an example of one where we just wanted our opponent to get a knockout so that we could eventually get the free switch in, and it didn't really matter if we were targeting into protects or whatnot. Okay, we have what is a pretty standard team. A lot of people have called this like the new Rinya team, because Rinya Kobayashi, the player that made Rinya, the Rinya Sun team that existed in 2022, which was Charizard, Grimmsnarl, Gastrodon, Groudon, Zacian, and Incin, came up with a new core of 6 that's been very popular. You'll normally see Dragonite over Fire Ogerpon, but otherwise the rest of the Pokemon are the same. So it's interesting because there's a bunch of different ways you can run it, but I normally see, for example, like Miracle Seed on Rillaboom, Assault Vest on Heatran, Citrus, Nasty Plot, Trick Room, Farigiraf. Those sets are all fairly common. With the Farigiraf, Illumise becomes substantially weaker because I can't go for Fake Tears nearly as easily, which is kind of annoying, honestly. I could still lead it, though. And I think trapping things in with Infestation is still valuable. But for example, I'm thinking like Ogerpon plus Flutter is interesting because I can just follow me and spam damage with Flutter. I think we definitely need to bring hands out here. Chew is worth considering because of its matchup into Farigiraf as a lead. But I'm also running out of time here, so I gotta be careful. Okay, I'm gonna drop Illumise here. It's been incredible for us, and I think it could still be very good for us here because Tailwind in itself is valuable, but I don't love bringing it into a Farigiraf specifically. However, if my opponent led Rillaboom plus Farigiraf, I think Illumise Chew as a lead would have been absolutely amazing. So I don't know if this is my most consistent lead, but yeah, I think seeing Farigiraf in itself means that Illumise can't go for Encore or Fake Tears nearly as easily. But it's Rilla Chimpow, okay. This is pretty scary. I actually got crushed by this lead before, and they would just go for like Grassy Glide, Sucker Punch onto everything, which was not good. I could take a pretty big risk in the just spiky shield here and just attack with Flutter. I don't think they're going to Sucker Punch here, but they might just Ice Skull Crash into Flutter, glide into it. I should have led Shiyu against this, I guess. Alright, just went for Follow Me Gleam. Chimpow protected, okay. I mean, is this just Grassy Glide coming out from their end? No, they're probably Wood Hammering here. Okay, that makes sense. That's pretty scary because you probably just knock out the Ogerpon. Yeah. It's a free switch into Chi-Yu for me, though. I could go into hands as well, right? It's not a bad option. I think I actually like hands more here than Chi-Yu. And then with hands, I can fake out until a Rillaboom slot Dazzling Gleam. They could switch in Farigiraf if they had it here, but I don't think I want to show it that much respect here. And they do it, so be it. Great play. Chimpow could Ghost Terra here as well. Otherwise, I would consider Fake Out into Chimpow and Dazzling Gleam. I guess you could switch Chimpow out into Farigiraf and then just glide into Flutter. That'd be pretty strong. Yeah, I think that's what's coming out. That Farigiraf? Oh, it's Ogre. Nice. Okay, I'll take that. I feel like they just have too much damage here. Like, the physical damage is so oppressive. Because the thing is, now you just bring Champao back out, you Terra Ogerpon, you just target Iron Hands, right? I am Fire Terra, though, actually, which is a pretty big deal. Yeah, wait, Fire Terra is huge for us here. But, like, you know, if I had Urshifu in the back, I feel like that would have been such a strong fourth. So maybe I need to bring that over Chi-Yu. I brought Chi-Yu because I was spooked out about Farigiraf specifically. And if I bring Urshifu and they end up setting up Trick Room with Farigiraf, it's really bad. So I think we definitely Fire Terra this. I want to Fire Terra, like, Wild Charge into Ogerpon and Gleam. Expecting Champao to maybe protect here. And I would Terra the Ogerpon here if I were them. Get that increased damage. Because I could see this playing where it's like, okay, they Terra the Ogerpon, Champao protects, and then Ogerpon targets either slot. And if they ended up going like Ivy Cudgel into Iron Hands, that would be huge. They might just Icicle Crash Flutter here, though. And we haven't seen Champao actually launch an attack yet. It's normally going to be Focus Sash, but Life Orb Champao is a thing as well. Illumise would have been okay in this one, but like the problem is whatever I had next to Illumise was just threatened so much by priority. Oh! They end up crashing into Hands. That is a really good outcome for us. Okay, nice. Yeah, so we just get Gleam off, bring you down to Sash. Cool. Guessing they were expecting Flutter to switch. Yeah, this is where Fire Terra is beautiful. That was a lot of damage, though. I don't think I KO in return with Wild Charge, too. Oh, wow, I definitely don't. That sucks. I mean, yeah, Wild Charge wouldn't have KO'd because they healed so much. The grassy terrain plus the defense drop meant that Hands took way more damage than I expected. I think I switch Flutter out here to take Icicle Crash. Drain Punch into you and switch out. Because I do have Specs Power Gem, but their Champao's also faster, so... That turn looked great until it wasn't great. Okay. They Sucker Punch, though. Oh, and it's Glide. Okay. The fact that they have Glide as well is really bad, I think. Because they were obviously trying to Sucker Punch into... I mean, we do knock out Champao. How many turns of terrain are left? We're getting close to stalling it out. We are running Specs Power Gem, but if Urshifu Water comes out here, I think they just win. Because you just glide. Yeah, that's Urshifu. You just glide into Chi-Yu, strikes into Iron Hands. Is there any way to win? Glide into this, which should KO. Strikes into this. If I switch, this just faints. Yeah, I don't see an out. I think I'm pinned. Could protect this, give up Flutter, get the free switching back into Hands, fake out Dark Pulse. It's the only way I can even remotely think about winning. I think the game is over, but I guess I gotta at least try. Them having Grassy Glide on Ogerpon here made things a lot tougher. And then, yeah, the flinch turn was rough, but I didn't make the right target selection that turn anyway. And I think, like, Chi-Yu wasn't the right final Pokemon to have. It was Urshifu. Actually, the way to have won is, yeah, if they throw and, like, they end up surging strikes into Chi-Yu here. So actually, yeah, I still like the play that I made here as a potential out. Because if they end up, like, doubling into Iron or Chi-Yu for some reason, well, I probably still end up losing. Like, the play is to actually protect and then stay in with Hands and Wild Charge Urshifu. Maybe that's actually the best bet. And basically play for a throw where you double up onto Chi-Yu faints, Wild Charge KOs Urshifu, Flutter comes out, Power Gem into Ogerpon. That actually is probably better. Yeah. Okay. Because I'm not even coming close to knocking out, and like Ogerpon should just be faster here. I don't think Illumise was the solution though. I think Scarf Urshifu was my solution. Spiky Shield. Do you protect here? Yeah. Okay. Nicely done. Chi-Yu was mainly brought for Farigiraf, but they didn't end up bringing Farigiraf. So if I were to play this game again, I would get rid of Chi-Yu. I would prioritize knocking out Rillaboom ASAP and then using Scarf Urshifu in the end game to clean things up. But I think that mid game when, you know, like I went for the Wild Charge and got flinched, like that could have been a Drain Punch. It's tough. Like as soon as I Terra, it opens the door for Urshifu in the back, right? I think it could be Ogerpon too. Like, I could have my Ogerpon as, like, because I lost Ogerpon on turn 1, right? I didn't have a really good trade on turn 1. So, something like Ogerpon Chi-Yu lead could be, like, Chi-Yu could work if I lead it. Otherwise, I think, like, using Ogerpon offensively in the end game would have been really valuable. Because imagine if I tear it, I guess then Hornleech, or sorry, Glide is super effective. But, yeah, I mean, like, Ogerpon at least can handle Urshifu and Chien-Pao decently well. So, I think I could have used that more effectively if I wanted to win this battle as well. But, yeah. Okay, we've got a Roaring Moon team here with Heatran, Urshifu, Goldengo, Flutter, and Iron Hands. So, Illumise to set up Tailwind is fairly effective. One thing to note, though, is Roaring Moon, we can't Encore until it Terras, because it's Dark type. Goldengo is also immune to Illumise. And if it's Dark Urshifu, that's also immune. So, a couple things to watch out for. I think I don't mind an Illumise Flutter lead here, because we can fake Tears pressure immediately. Hand seems solid here, right? Can soak up damage and retaliate back with knockouts. And I kind of like Scarf Urshifu here. I don't know, I think Ogerpon's also worth considering. But I think Scarf Urshifu is intriguing because Surging Strikes in close combat just do a lot of damage, and I think we'll have the speed advantage in this matchup. So let's see. I think if they lead Roaring Moon immediately, it becomes interesting. I think something like Iron Hands Flutter, I could just go like Tailwind Shadow Ball. I could Fake Tears Moonblast Hands. A lot of options. It is Hands Flutter. Okay. Knowing that I have Scarf Urshifu in the back and Iron Hands. Oh, like I'd love to just Fake Tears. Do they have Prio on their team? Mainly Urshifu. It's a question of whether or not we think Hands Terra's on turn 1 and what Terra turns into. But like I want to just Fake Tears, Terra, Moonblast, try to KO Hands. And okay, good switch. Probably Heatran coming in. No, that's Goldengo. That's a really good switch. Really, really good play. They recognize that I have to respect Iron Hands there. And yeah, play nicely defensively. Man, locking in a Shadow Ball would have been pretty sick, but I wasn't sure if Fake Tear Shadow Ball gets the knockout on the Hands. I wouldn't have bet on it. So I was hoping they would just, you know, stay in, maybe Terra. Okay, we're faster though, which is at least good information. Because it means I can go for Fake Tears Moonblast onto Flutter next turn if they don't KO Illumise. It's actually Water Flutter too. Okay. But yeah, Goldengo is a pretty annoying Pokemon to fight against just because I can't actually click Fake Tears into it. And if I got Fake Tears Moonblast on the Flutter on turn 1, that would have been a sick play, but hard to have that much confidence going for a play like that. Moonblast is just under a 2-hit KO, unfortunately. Okay, did not see Trick Room coming. Definitely did not anticipate that. Now, I have Encore, but yeah, it's going to be Encore and switch out into Hands right now for sure. Wow. Okay. Trick Room Flutter Mane is probably one of the best closed team sheet strats you can run, just because very few people anticipate it. Most Flutters are, you know, booster energy or choice specs and aren't very tanky. So that is not, like, of course I could try to go for Fake Tears Moonblast onto that, but imagine if Flutter just protects or switches out into Golden Go and Iron Hands Heavy Slams me. That's a disaster. But they're going to let me Encore them, which is huge. Good. And Thunderbolt. Wow. Thunderbolt. Huh. Instead of Make It Rain? I'm a little bit surprised by that. I guess they were just reading into a switch into, like, Urshifu or Ogerpon. But I'll take it. I'll gladly take it. So we know Flutter's going to switch out now, right? I think a switch back into Iron Hands makes sense. Switch back into Iron Hands. No point in really clicking most of these moves. I think we go for Infestation and just trap something in. I'm down for Infestation onto a Flutter slot. And then just Wild Charge into Golden Go. Yep, Flutter pivots. Might be a double switch here, honestly, but we'll see. It's Roaring Moon. Okay. So we get Infestation off into it, which is super effective. It's kind of funny to see that. Is this a Salt Vest Golden Go? Because Moonblast did do very little damage. They're not choice spexed. Huh. It might be. Very interesting. Okay, well, I'm down to go for Infestation now onto Golden Go, and then just Drain Punch into Roaring Moon. Like, this Golden Go is doing no damage. And they just protect, okay. Protect what, Acrobatics maybe? Nope, just Breaking Swipe. Like, their team is so passive in terms of damage, so even though they had this big surprise on turn 1, like, Illumise just instantly gets us back into the game, and their inability to switch right now is really limiting them as well. And it's Chople Berry Roaring Moon. Huh. That's fascinating. But Infestation is so good in this scenario, right? Because they're just getting whittled away. And they can't switch. So I'll gladly take this scenario, all things considered. Does Infestation KO Golden Go? Like, it's so low, but this move also just does no damage. Right now, I can't Encore or Fake Tears either Pokemon, though, so that's one thing to note. My Flutter is also faster, and I have Scarf Urshifu, so I don't really think we need Tailwind. So I'm down to just go for Infestation on a Golden Go. And then Drain Punch. Alright, they're just Breaking Swipe again. This Chople Berry support Roaring Moon is not doing much for my opponent right now. Such pitiful damage. And they finally click Make It Rain. Okay. I probably could have gone Tailwind into Wild Charge instead here. I think that would have been the better play. But it's fine. We heal back up. Now I just bring out Flutter. I think Flutter gets to just Dazzling Gleam everything. But I do think Tailwinding actually there was the right play there. I was just worried because I knew they could set up Trick Room again, and like, what are the odds this has Acrobatics, right? Like, Illumise is actually a really good Mon to have in this matchup, so I'm not sure I love how I played that, but I'm going to Gleam and then switch into Urshifu right now to reset these attack drops. Looks like they're staying in. Okay. They have the ability to switch out now, because Illumise has fainted. Roaring Moon protects. Okay. So we're going to get a knockout on a Golden Go. Yeah, they're caught in a pretty tough spot, because if you bring out... And that's why switching out Iron Hands is really important there to exert a little bit more offensive pressure. If you bring out Flutter Mane, I just Dazzling Gleam close combat that slot. If you bring out Iron Hands, I just Dazzling Gleam and... Probably just Dazzling Gleam Surging Strike's hands, right? Gleam here. I would lock into Surging Strikes, which isn't as good into Flutter Mane, because so I could click Close Combat instead. I don't think Roaring Moon really pressures me at all, though, honestly. So, yeah, I think I don't mind Gleam and Strikes into hands. Okay, they fake out. Could have gotten the knockout here onto Rory Moon, but I wanted the damage onto hands. I don't know if that was correct, though. But what is, like, Rory Moon gonna do, right? Okay, this set is crazy. Like, the reason why I wasn't really respecting Rory Moon was because its damage output was just so low when I was clicking Breaking Swipe earlier. It has Double Edge, which definitely was unexpected. I figured it didn't have Acrobatics, because, like, your Acrobatics is just not going to activate half the time. But that's crazy. I'm just going to Gleam now and Strikes into hands again. They had some cool surprises here, but in the end, they just lacked damage output. But yeah, I think I could have played the mid-game a little bit better. Like, turn 1 was obviously a huge surprise, but Illumise having Encore just instantly brought us back into this game, right? Like, my opponent committed a Terra to Flutter main, spent so much time setting up this Trick Room, and then, like, Flutter's forced to switch out. Golden Go's damage was just really surprisingly low. So I'm curious about the item on that, because normally it's hands with the Assault Vest. We never got to confirm the item here, but yeah, they're just going to Moonblast into us. I don't think Flutter can win this. I mean, it's Trick Room. Yeah, I mean, fake out Surging Strikes. No, Gleam doesn't knock out Iron Hands, I don't think. And I think 2 Surging Strikes just gets it here. But talk about a bag of surprises here. Shoutouts to Illumise, though, because without Encore, I would have been in a lot of trouble. The surprise Trick Room came absolutely out of nowhere. But, yeah, ended up being okay for us in the end. So, thankfully, they didn't switch out their Flutter main there. They were probably expecting to just deal good damage with Flutter under Trick Room. But, yeah, very unique Rory Moon set. That Double Edge was a little bit spooky. If they get the knockout there, I'm actually in a pretty bad spot, and I probably end up losing the game. So, maybe I should have gone Surging Strikes onto Rory Moon instead in that position. Because I don't know. I was like, what attack would it even have, like, a knockout Flutter main from the range that I was at? Double Edge was the answer, but it still wasn't enough damage to get the knockout, so what a doozy. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one, so thank you so much as always for joining me as we wrap up the Regulation E format, and I'm really happy to just play a team that has such a unique Pokemon in Illumise, and so cool to see it claim a championship once again. So, thanks for joining me. My name's CybertronVGC. Leave a like if you enjoy, and I'll see you all soon. Alright, peace.